at the University of Ghana's 74th Annual New Year School reopening ceremony. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, together with some keynote speakers, addressed the issue of positioning the African market for sustainable development through the AfTA. The AfTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is purposed to eliminate the tariffs and barriers placed on African trading, to encourage intra-African trade in order to strengthen the African economy. Now, how will stakeholders enable the AfTA to become accessible to the African entrepreneur?
The world is facing an economic downturn. At the turn of the third decade of this 21st century, a global pandemic and the war in Europe has exposed global economic structures to be vulnerable and weak, and therefore calls for an immediate transformation in its economic management. Africa has always been at the mercy of global superpowers due to its inability to present a united front when decisions are being made. As the world's richest continent in terms of natural resources, it remains the poorest, with its wealth failing to translate into better standards of living for her people. In 2022, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) stated that the public debt of the entire sub-Saharan Africa reached 60% of its GDP. This composition of debt has shifted towards high-cost private sources, increasing debt services cost, and rollover risk. In fact, 19 out of 35 of the region's countries are currently in a debt distress or at a high risk of debt distress. What this means is that increasing inflation may lead to scarcity of basic commodities and food insecurity. The current global economic challenges only signifies one thing: an emerging global economy. This is why positioning the African market strategically in the next few years is critical to it finding a path to economic growth and eventual economic independence. Speaking at the University of Ghana's 74th Annual New Year School reopening ceremony were key industry players and policymakers. Amongst them was Mr. Daniel Macaulay, the CEO of Ghana's largest logistic firm, McDan Group of Companies. He emphasized Ghana's lack of control of her industries, which was a similar case for most African countries.
Ghanaian businessmen don't control any sector of this country. Rather, we contribute. All sectors in Ghana are controlled by foreigners. Banking is controlled by Nigerians and the South Africans. Retail is controlled by Lebanese and Indians. Manufacturing is controlled by Indians and Lebanese. Telecom sector is controlled by British and South Africans. Oil and gas, mining, trading, you name it, they are controlled by foreigners. So, I asked the question, how does private sector thrive? Who does the local SME look up to? How do they navigate? These were the questions I asked myself.
His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, conveyed the statistics of the current trading activities amongst African countries.
Madam Chairperson, when you consider the fact that trade between African countries remains low and currently stands at some 16% of our combined GDP, 16%, compared to other parts of the world like the European Union, where trade between countries of the European Union accounts for 75% of their combined GDP. So when you see this difference, it is obvious that these very low levels of intra-regional trade cannot improve our prospects of bringing prosperity to our people. A large part of the growth and prosperity that we seek on the continent of Africa will come from us trading among ourselves. The coming into force of the AFCFTA means that Africa now has the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. The free trade area will cover a market of 1.2 billion people with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion and across 54 member states of the African Union that have signed up to the agreement.
Now, for the AfTA to succeed, Ghana, which hosts its secretariat, and its fellow African countries need to implement certain key frameworks, and one of them is incorporating the training of the youth on what the AfTA truly means into our academia.
It's a question responsibility for you who run the institutions to be able to appreciate that this is a market. And for a market, you need to train people to work on it. So without the training, nothing happens. So let's train our people. Just merely going to study, arithmetic and the rest is not enough. Add to it so that we can then create a big market.
So you have the view that it has to be incorporated into our academia?
Yeah, that is what it has to be. You have to introduce. In fact, I claim that entrepreneurship should be a subject. Irrespective of what you are studying in the university, you should study entrepreneurship. So that when you come out, you don't go and tell me that you left university 2 or 3 years, you have not got a job. And I say, why? What? You've been trained to use your brain. Use it. Use it. So that is what it is all about.
Mr. Macaulay further lists strategic measures that needs to be taken if we are to realize the full potential of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
The key to succeeding as anything requires knowledge. The private sector must educate themselves comprehensively about AfTA, from policy context to concept execution. That is why the second solid is the partnership. With this solid partnership, the private sector must get actively involved in support, whilst key stakeholders such as McDonald have taken the lead in logistics. There are other segments within the AfTA that need specialist expertise to be in country specific. The third, which is very, very important to me, is the youth and creation of jobs. The main driver for Agenda 2063 will be the youth, and there must not only be an effort and a keen interest in their participation, but also specific participatory rules and platforms to build their human capacity.
An agenda that is widely supported by leaders of the African continent is that the success of the AfTA must be realized. This is because it is envisioned to lead Africa's economic revolution by changing the status quo of dependence, charity, and borrowing into the effective use of its enormous natural resources in order to realizing wealth for its people. But the question remains, is Africa prepared to capture the opportunity of the emerging global economy with the creation of the AfTA?
In order to maximize the benefits of the AFCFTA, the structural transformation of the economy has to be accelerated. We are still overly reliant on the production and export of raw materials, and not sufficiently on the things that we make and grow. That is why government is firmly committed to addressing productive capacity issues through initiatives such as the One District, One Factory policy, the development of industries like the integrated bauxite and aluminium industry, the iron and steel industry, and the program for agricultural renewal and enhancement, the that we have done planting for food and jobs. It is this transformation that will give us the best opportunity to derive maximum benefit from our abundant natural resources and from our participation in the AFCFTA and help bring progress and prosperity to our people, fortified by the deliberate steps we are taking to educate our children to be more responsive to the needs of our 21st century world of work. Furthermore, to derive maximum benefits from the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have to put in place the needed physical infrastructure. Trade cannot happen without key infrastructure. Government is investing in trade-related infrastructure in order to facilitate trade.
The success of the AfTA could bring an end to the mass exodus of Africa's youth to the West, who sometimes risk their lives to cross the harsh conditions of the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea in search of jobs that do not exist on the African continent. The AfTA is expected to encourage the growth of the private sector in order to create sustainable job opportunities for the continent's teeming youth. By the year 2050, Africa's population will be dominated by the youth, with an estimated number of over 830 million youths. This means the role and responsibility of the AfTA must not be underestimated if the continent wants a prosperous economy in the near future.
As an entrepreneur and a philanthropist who has been on a 25+ year journey of both failure and success, I can boldly say that AfTA is the future of the impact of economic development in Africa. And I also ask the question, are we ready to do whatever it takes? Are we ready for AfTA? For me, it is a resounding yes, because it is truly in Africa's style.
In conclusion, Africa's private businesses and entrepreneurs could be spearheading the continent's economic revolution and independence if their involvement on the African Continental Free Trade Area becomes a success. Just as hope is what sustains humanity, the entire future and growth of Africa certainly depends on the success of the AfTA. This report was put together by Joseph Amwakwata and Rahel Akosua Oredwa Opoku for the Kente Business Journal. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel Kente Business Journal TV and press the notification bell to stay updated always.